Open the door. Open the door.
I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you. What? Are you sure?
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life and why you still think about that moment?
So I got one for y'all. So growing up, we would always go over my mom's aunt's house. So she'd be my great aunt. Everybody called her Granny, though. That was her nickname. So Granny's house, it was a pretty decent sized house. It was a big house, at least by my standards. So to actually put this story in perspective, I actually did some digging and found some pictures of the house. This is Granny's house right here. So you got your main floor, there's a basement, and then there's the upstairs here. And upstairs, you have a bedroom here, you have a bedroom up here, and then there's this long hallway, and then in the back, there's another bedroom in the middle. But anyway, so anytime I went over this house as a kid to visit family, I always ended up getting the heebie-jeebies, right? Especially in this basement in the top floor. Now, one particular day, I'm about 14, 15 years old. We go over to visit family and everybody's just hanging out, chilling. And my mom's cousins start telling her that, you know, they've been having some experiences lately. They said they've heard like voices, that they've been feeling like people were watching them. One of them even said they felt touched on their shoulder, and this all happened upstairs. And y'all know I'm white as hell, so I just felt the need to go investigate. So I start making my way upstairs. Remember, I told you there's a bedroom here, and then there's this hallway, and there's another bedroom in the middle. Well, the bedroom in the middle was especially creepy. This was the bedroom. No windows, no nothing. And for some fucking reason, it was filled with these porcelain dolls that looked like this. There had to be at least 100 of them some bitches in there. So anyway, I get to the top of the steps and I start doing my investigating. I'm just walking back and forth down this hallway, talking shit to this ghost. Like I said, white. But you know, looking back on it, telling this story, this is what it was like.
I can't wait to get my hands on this food. Come on out, cuz.
Yeah, I was Ray Ray. And I had to be walking back and forth, walking through these rooms for at least 5 to 10 minutes. I'm walking around like, if somebody's here, make your presence known. Like I'm on fucking ghost hunters and shit. And yeah, I'm starting to get kind of annoyed.
Show yourself! No, Ray, don't do that. Don't.
So yeah, as I'm talking my shit, I walk into this one-end bedroom and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up and I suddenly feel cold. Like the whole back of my neck just felt ice cold. And I'm just standing there dead still like, oh shit. I slowly turned around and I just reached my hand out. Y'all, my whole arm up to my elbow went numb. Like static numb. I pulled it back real quick. It was fine. Did it again, numb. Yo, I ran down them fucking stairs so fast. I got the fuck out of there.
When I was a kid, my family and I lived in a house in Texas. It was a 2-story house and my parents were putting my little sister to sleep in her crib. Then they went on downstairs and I continued to play with my toys at the top of the staircase. For some random reason, I decided to look at the bottom of the staircase and I saw my sister crawling around on the ground. So I thought to myself, I wonder how she got down there. Then I remembered, my parents had just put her in the crib about 5 minutes ago. So while I stare at her, I realize that she's a little pale and she has huge black eyes, but otherwise she looks just like my sister. So naturally, I start screaming and my parents come running. I'm hysterical and my parents are asking me what's wrong. I point and I say, look, there's Sneha. She's at the bottom of the staircase. But she was gone. Around my 18th birthday, my family and I took a trip to India. We were visiting my grandma and one night she decided to oil and braid my hair and my sister's hair. So as my grandma was braiding my sister's hair, she looked over at my mom and she said, Ritu, Sneha's twin would have been a girl. I look at my mom and I say, what twin? And my mom looks at me and says, Swasti, I never told you this, but I miscarried Sneha's twin. This happened around 5 years ago at my parents' house. So I had just gotten home from the gym and I had my headphones on. As soon as you walk into my house, you see this staircase here. I saw my sister's legs sneaking around this corner of the staircase and I rolled my eyes because I was like, what is she sneaking around for? This is our house. So I went to the kitchen to wash my water bottle. I looked up through the kitchen window that looks into our family room here and I saw my sister sitting on the couch with her headphones on. She was just kind of looking at her laptop. There is no way she could have come down without me seeing her. This is where I was, and this is the only other way to get through to that other room without coming directly through the kitchen, but I'm still going to see you walk by the kitchen. So I came into this room and I asked my sister whether she had gone upstairs 2 minutes ago. She took off her headphones and said, no, I've been sitting down here for the past hour watching The Office. I freaked out because I know I saw someone go up that staircase. So I went upstairs, but I couldn't find anyone. I called the cops. They searched the entire house and they couldn't find anyone either. To this day, I have no idea who it was, but those legs looked a lot like my sister's, so I can only assume that it was the ghost of my sister's dead twin.
This is how I found out I was living inside of a literal haunted house. So thankfully it's not the house that I'm living in right now, but it was my old house, and let me just tell y'all, it was small, creepy, and I always got a bad vibe from it. And what I'm about to share are my top 3 experiences and how I knew that we had to get the hell out of there. So this night is what I feel like started it all and opened a portal for all the demons and monsters and ghosts to come out and haunt us. Y'all know when y'all have a dream inside of a dream and you wake up and you're like, wait, I thought that was real life? That's what I had. So I had a dream inside of my dream that I woke up out of my sleep and I was in my room on my top bunk bed staring at the door. And y'all, being on a bunk bed is crucial to the story, so keep that in mind. So in this dream, I wake up out of my sleep, I shoot up and I'm looking at my door and there's a girl standing right there. She's standing at the door, pale as ever. She has long black hair and she's wearing this white dress. At this point, I cannot see her face. The only thing that I know is that she's a little girl. And I also knew that we didn't have any guests over, so I was like, who the hell is she? So y'all know in horror movies when there's like a ghost or a monster and their mouth opens up wide like they're about to consume something? That's what happened with this girl. So that girl is standing at my doorway and her mouth starts to open and she's coming towards me, and instantly I wake up out of that dream and now I'm like fully awake. So I shoot up out of my dream and I look up at the doorway, but nothing is there. When I tell y'all, I was freaking out, and here is where the bunk bed is crucial to the story. So I'm at the top of my bunk bed, there's nobody sleeping at the bottom. So keep in mind, I just had this scary dream that I saw a girl there. Tell me why I'm on the top of my bunk bed and I start to feel it shake. My natural instinct was to put the cover over my head, lay back down, because ain't no way in hell was I about to pop my head over the railing to see who was down there. No. I remember I sat there in silence, frozen, waiting for this bed to stop shaking, and I was freaking out the whole entire time, and when I told my parents about this, they did not believe me. But here's why I said that this probably opened up a portal for ghosts and other things to enter inside my house. So after that moment, this is when stuff started to get really, really crazy. So one night I decided to tuck myself into bed while everyone was still awake or getting ready to go to sleep. So at this point, doors closed, lights are off. So now tell me why I'm in my bed and I feel something tug at my collar. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe, I'm just like moving around in my sleep. Maybe that's what caused it. I move slightly. That was not the case at all. After I adjusted myself and made sure that I was not moving at all, tell me why about 5 minutes later, I feel another tug, but this time it's like tugging at the back of my collar, and I'm like choking at this point. I'm like, who is pulling on my collar? So I take off my shirt, I open the door and I leave it open, and I tell my parents, can you please have your door open just in case? So after that incident happened, I told my parents, I was like, listen, I need a nightlight for my room. I do not care. Get me one, please. And this last incident is when I knew that I was living inside of a haunted house. So this one day I decided to rearrange my room, and my bed at this point is facing the window. So basically the bed is like that and the window is right there. So this night in particular, I decided to sleep facing the wall. So now I can't see what's going on behind me. And of course, this night was the night that I got sleep paralysis for the first time. So all I remember is that I woke up from my sleep and I could not move at all. When I tell y'all, my heart was touching my feet, like I was freaking the fuck out. So because I can't move, I can't see what's behind me. Keep that in mind. So about 5 minutes into me freaking out, I hear a ball start bouncing. I can hear it and the ball is far away and it starts to get closer to the point where it starts bouncing underneath my bed. So y'all, keep in mind, I still cannot move. I can't turn around to see what's happening. So I'm hearing this ball bounce underneath my bed, and then all of a sudden it suddenly stops. So when you get chills and you can just feel like the vibe is off? I got that instantly, and I started feeling this vibration, this heavy vibration that something was right next to me. So at this point, while I'm feeling this vibration next to me, my whole body just completely shuts down. I'm sweating, I start crying, and then all of a sudden I'm able to move. I don't think I've ever shot up from my bed so fast in my life. When I had the ability to move, I moved. So I got up, I started screaming. My parents probably thought that there was an intruder in the house. I started screaming. I ran to my door, opened it, ran to my brother's room and said, I'm sleeping here tonight. Then my parents woke up. They started coming into the room. They were like, what's going on? What's going on? I told them exactly what happened. Then I told them about my previous experiences about what happened in this house. And after that day, we got the house blessed and we never heard anything ever again. But y'all, that's how I found out that my house is haunted. And I have so many more stories, but that was just the top 3.
For your sake, I hope you are not alone and it's not dark where you are, because I'm going to tell you some urban legends that will probably make you piss yourself. Now, this first one actually fucking terrifies me, and I'm actually getting ready to leave for work and I'm home alone. My roommate is out of town now, so walking outside is going to be a bit of a challenge. But without further ado, let's talk about the black-eyed kids. Now, their origins are pretty much a huge mystery. The first sightings were published around the late 90s. This is when people started reporting seeing them in like rural areas or even on highways, and they appear originally as lost children. So common encounters with them include they will, as I said previously, they appear as lost children and they will typically ask you something along the lines of, hey, I'm lost, like, can I use your phone? Like, they'll knock at your door or at your car asking for a ride, saying that they're stranded, something along those lines. Now, if you don't respond or don't let them in, they will start to get more and more vicious each time. They'll just keep on trying, like, let me in. They'll just grow increasingly agitated with you. Now, they typically come at night. They'll knock on doors. They'll knock on your window. All sorts of shit. And one thing that people have tended to like notice with these children is how their skin tone, it's pretty pale, in contrast to like average people, of course. And of course, their black eyes, like there's no white in their eyes, it's just completely black. Now, no one has ever lived to tell the tale if they end up letting these children in. It's reported that they are either cryptids or some type of alien-human hybrid, but as I said before, their origins are pretty much unknown. Now, this next one is a certified hood classic. It's Bloody Mary. If you don't know what that is, then I don't know what to tell you. But this was a huge part of my childhood back in elementary school, and it actually triggered my fear of mirrors. I hate mirrors. I will try and cover them as much as possible. I try not to have them in my room and so on. Like, they actually terrify me. And I remember in elementary school, a couple girls thought it was funny to lock us in the bathroom, turn off the lights, and start chanting her name. And that just pushed my phobia even more. But let's get into the backstory. So this was actually a divination ritual in like historic times, basically. So a woman would walk backwards up a flight of stairs with a candle lit. And when she would look into the mirror, she would be able to see her future husband's face. And sometimes she would see a skull kind of symbolizing the Grim Reaper, basically meaning she would die before she would be able to get married. And then eventually Bloody Mary came about. In elementary school, what I was told was that you just had to chant her name 3 times in a dark room in front of a mirror, and then she would appear and kill you. But allegedly, you have to chant her name 13 times with a candle, and this will cause an apparition to appear. She'll either be nice or demonic. Either one. And if you want to test it out, be my guest. Now, this next urban legend is a bit lighter. It's the story of Herobrine. This is for all my gamers out there who grew up on Minecraft, because I remember looking up YouTube videos summoning Herobrine, and I would try and do the same thing on my little iPad at the time back in like the early 2010s. Sorry, my eyes are like watering. And it was just such a huge like phenomenon at the time. Like, you just had to be there. So Herobrine was allegedly Notch's dead brother, and he would haunt single-player worlds. Now, what makes this so creepy is if you've ever played Minecraft alone, it can be creepy. Like, you're just in this vast world. Sometimes the ambient music, especially when you're in the cave systems, it can be actually terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. So it's no wonder why this used to scare us so much. Now, the first sighting of Herobrine was actually reported by a 4chan user, and one key thing that players would notice if Herobrine was in their world was trees would be like, how do I explain it? they would be like missing in a sense. Like parts of trees would be missing as if someone was already there. I don't know if you know this, but if you've ever played Minecraft, when you cut down trees and stuff, it's pretty apparent. The blocks don't really grow back, or at the time they didn't grow back. So this was like a key thing. And the player spotted Herobrine in the fog, like in the distance. And Herobrine typed out stop and then vanished as quickly, almost as quickly as the player saw him. And this kind of sparked, the ongoing Herobrine theory. And then came the rituals and YouTube videos to summon him in your game. I'm like low-key scared to go outside now because after I'm done with this, I'm like heading out to go into work. And I'm just like, my car is like right in the driveway, but I'm just like, I'm still fucking like terrified to walk out. And I need to pee as well. And now I'm scared to pee. Like, now you guys can see how much of a scaredy cat I really am when I'm alone. And I'm like actually scared. A lot of these, like, this video actually feels nostalgic because this was stuff that I grew up with as far as urban legends. And they actually, like, a lot of the phobias I have now stem from these urban legends. All right, we're done. This is the finished look. I like to keep it simple for work because I'm on my toes, but a lot of patients like compliment my eyes whenever I have this type of makeup on because it just enhances them and enlarges them because I have hazel colored eyes. So I kind of want my ego boosted this morning. But anyways, you guys have a great day.
My landlord is a creep, and it's getting to the point where I need to move out as soon as humanly possible because I'm getting really scared. I'm going to tell you everything that he has done so far since I've paid my earnest money. Rewinding way back to when I was just looking at this house to see if I wanted to buy it. First red flag is that I asked who the landlord was. All he said was, "I'm the manager." He never said that he was the landlord. He went out of his way to say that he was the manager. No clue why. I don't know what that was supposed to serve him. This house was originally $1,800. I live in like a really gorgeous log cabin cottage studio house of sorts. And it was originally $1,800. I talked him down to $1,300. And the only reason why I was able to do that was because he really wanted me to live there, which I learned later. Right off the bat, he was already really weird. He would call me peculiar. He would say things like, "Well, I am building a house for a rock star after all." And this was after I paid the earnest money, so I didn't really have a choice. Look at that red mark. He would call me the weirdest things and just call me peculiar and said that I was really put together for my age and most 20-year-old girls wouldn't be able to do this and just weird things like that. And then one day I brought my aunt and my cousin over here to see my place because I was really excited about it because it's really cute in here. We went down to the root cellar because he was showing me the root cellar, and I walked up to where my back was against the window and he was in front of me. He went behind me, looked at my ass and told me that I had dirt on my ass while my cousin and my aunt was there and could have told me that, and he went out of his way to look. He also has made comments about my outfits, saying that I just dress super strange and super cool and things like that. He's made comments on my sweaters, just like asking me, "Are they wool? You would really like this brand. You should really try this on because I think it would look really good on you." Like, just really strange things. And this is after I paid my earnest money, so I didn't have a choice. He would call me at literally like 9-10 p.m. and ask me like, "What do you think about this ceiling fan? What do you think about putting a shelf here and putting a shelf there?" Because my house was still under construction when I paid the earnest money, and he just went out of his way to try to contact me as much as humanly possible. And also, mind you, I live in like a barn behind a house that he also owns, and that house was being rented by a lady that he was having an affair with because he had a wife. And keep in mind, my landlord is 60 years old. 60. Anyway, so he had an affair with the lady who used to live in the main house, and the main house is gorgeous and huge, and she was getting like a massive deal just because they were dating or whatever. And then he tried to go make it work with his wife. It didn't work with his wife, so he tried to go back to the lady who lived there, and then the lady who lived there was not having it and was like, "No, I don't want to be with you. You're like not a good guy." And so then he went completely buck wild, booked a trip to the East Coast, and was trying to buy a house there. And he was telling me all about that house and telling me like, "Oh, like this is how big it is. I have these dreams to like restore it," and just like I don't know, just be comfortable and live on the beach and just strange things that he does not need to tell me. And the lady who used to live there ended up moving out because he ended up getting really aggressive and really strange to her, and she was not having it and like putting her through some pretty miserable things. And so she left. Her and I are still friends. Like, we still talk, and we talk a lot about him because he is so strange. And anyway, and so she moved out. He made her life miserable while she was moving out and just like kept barging into her house being like, I'm the landlord, I get to say what goes where, blah, 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 while her family was like trying to move her out of this house. He was still strange to me on the phone. He would say things like, I'm super into Rockefeller girls. What does that mean? I have no clue what that means. He asked me on an outing to go look for ceiling fans, and I was like, no thank you, I'll go with my grandma, it's okay. He also told me that all the doors are too pristine to put any extra locks on, and if somebody wanted to break into my house, they would, because I have all glass doors and windows all over my house. Literally said those words to me. And then a really weird part, after all of that weird stuff with the locks on my doors and the glass windows thing happened, he randomly bought me a $125 certificate to gun training. I will show you, but it literally, like, that's my name right there. He says, this is for Sephora, thank you. And then he bought this so that I could go get gun training instead of putting locks on my door. Always say things like, you're going to be the perfect tenant, and I'm so excited for you to live here, and just like things that could have been okay, but with all the context are not okay at all. I had been living here for a few months, and then he randomly told me, oh, by the way, I'm going to move into the main house tomorrow. So now he's my neighbor, and he's been my neighbor for a while now, and it is not fun at all. He literally stops me every single chance he gets. He asks me how I'm doing. He asks me how I like living here. He asks me like literally anything he can possibly say in the 3 seconds that I give him every time that I walk out of my house. And there's been times when he goes out of my way to like wave at me through the windows and just like, he's so uncomfortable. And then one day he touched my laundry without asking me, without saying a word to me about it. I was sleeping and he knew that I was sleeping, and he grabbed my laundry from the dryer and put it on top of the dryer. Who knows if he sniffed it? Who knows if he stole a pair of my panties? Who knows if he I don't know what he did with my laundry, but he went out of his way to ask the basement neighbor if it was her laundry, and then because she said no, he went ahead and touched it and did whatever he did with it, didn't tell me about it, and then I texted him about it, and I was like, you cannot disrespect me like that, you cannot violate my privacy like that, and he said nothing. He just was completely silent about it. Multiple times that he went out of his way to be like, hey, I know that you're out. I know that you're not home right now, but can I please go in your house because there's a prospective buyer and they really want to see inside your house. And I would be like, no, you cannot go inside my house. You did not give me a 24 hours notice. No, I am not comfortable with that at all. And then he proceeded to ask me multiple times and tried to pressure me and be like, please, like this prospective buyer is really hard to communicate with, and I don't know the next time that they'll be able to see your house, please. And then the most recent development is that these two very sweet young girls, they're both 21, I'm 20, they went to go look at the main house because he's trying to rent or sell the main house because he has like a bunch of different properties. And anyway, they came to look and they caught me right before I was running errands, and they were like, oh, hey, we were just talking about you and how it would be so awesome to live next to a girl that's our age. And I was like, yes, that would be so amazing. And then we just like totally hit it off, and I was telling them, I was like, that house is so beautiful, but just so you know, he's kind of a creep. Like, he's kind of weird. He's asking a really cheap price for it, and we adore it and would love to live next to you. And I was like, okay, just let me know, but let me get your guys' number just in case. So I grabbed both of their numbers, and then I had to go on my errands. So I left, texted me later in the night and was like, hey, we just filled out our application. He accepted us, and we're super excited. We really want to go. But then she was like, can I send you this text that he sent me though? Because I'm kind of weirded out. And I was like, yes, of course you can. And I'm going to show you the text right here. Screenshot, pause the video, whatever. But look how creepy this is. I am so terrified of this man. He literally told me that there was nothing to provoke it. No flirting, no commenting on anything like that. He just said that out of the blue. This girl is 21. My landlord is 60. Mind you, literally that same exact day, he had sent me a text and he said, if you need anything, just ask. I'm not the monster that everybody has made me out to be. And then a few hours later, he proved that he is preying on 21-year-olds. I am 20. I am terrified. There are so many things that I'm leaving out just because I forget, and I've been having to interact with this man for so long and far too much. But I have no clue what to do. I'm thinking about moving, but honestly, I'm not quite in the place to afford moving, so I'm not sure. I do social media full time, and I also run a small business. So if you want to support me in moving out of this house, I have a link in my bio with all of my clothing and jewelry and things like that. Or you could just follow me or subscribe to my YouTube or something like that, because I need to get out of here, because at this point, it's a matter of my safety. Anyway, I'm sure there's more, so let me know if you want a part 2. Okay, update about what I'm going to do about my landlord being a crazy predator, creep, weirdo. Here are my options. I can move into a new place. I don't really want to because I don't really like Idaho. I can ask my grandma if I can rent from her. Don't really want to. She's super religious. Love the woman, but I'm just not super religious. I could try and get roommates here and just make some friends, and that could be fun. Or I could get a van and travel and film it for content for the rest of the year until the winter, and then in the winter I'll choose where to go and get an apartment or something. What do you think? I really don't know. I don't have any friends here really. I have one new friend that I made, so I'm not like super rooted down here. I love my grandma, but she is super religious and she has her own problems other than me, and I haven't spoken to either of my parents in years. So that's not going to happen. I don't feel drawn to any of these options. I don't feel super attached to any of these options. If hypothetically I were to get a van and travel like crazy like I was just talking about, would you guys watch that content? Like, would that be worth it for you guys? It would obviously be really fun. It would still be like a lot of the stuff that I do now, plus more me outdoors and more me like renovating a van and talking about the road and all the cool little things I see along my little journey. But just tell me, help me, please. Give me advice, talk to me, anything.
When you go home at night, don't turn your lights on immediately after you get in your apartment, especially if people can see the windows of your apartment from the street, because if someone's following you home, they're gonna know what apartment you live in. When I got home tonight, I got out of my car and there was a man getting shit out of his car. I had never seen him before this morning when he was in my apartment complex area, and he just gave me bad vibes, but whatever. I got out of my car at night and he tries to make conversation with me about my headlight because it's out right now. I'm like, oh yeah, I know, I just have to get around to it, whatever. I go inside, don't turn the lights on, but I have a feeling to check my Ring camera. He's standing in the street, which is very close to my apartment building, staring at my building, and he did not leave for like 5 minutes. I mean, like halfway through, he left the empty parking spot and hid behind a car, but he waited to see. So now he knows what car I drive and where I live, just not my apartment. So, don't turn your lights on.
I think we may have actually captured a photo of La Llorona. But quick little backstory before I show you guys the photo. This story was submitted by Vivian. I went ahead and tagged her. One night, Vivian's husband and her cousin were up late playing with the Xbox. Vivian's husband was at home with her and her cousin was at his house. They were both just sitting there talking through the mic when they both decided to go outside and smoke a cigarette. At which point, Vivian's husband decided to call her cousin through FaceTime. So as they're out there smoking a cigarette, just talking back and forth, Vivian's cousin notices that his cat is acting weird. His whole body's like hunched over. I'll show you guys a picture, and the hairs in the back of his neck are like standing up. He figures that probably a dog got into his yard, so he decided to walk down towards the driveway to see if he could see anything. But of course, he couldn't see anything. At which point, he heard a woman scream. His first instinct was to drop to the ground right on his stomach and start crawling towards his house. I mean, he was terrified. Crazy part about the whole thing was that Vivian's husband, who was on FaceTime with him, did not hear the scream. Once her cousin got back to the porch, he told her husband what happened and decided to flip the camera in the direction that the scream came from. Her husband, of course, could not see anything, but decided to take a screenshot of the scream. This is when they finally saw what her cousin had heard. Now I'm going to show you guys the first initial photo she sent me, and then I'll show you guys the lightened version. Now this is the first one she sent me. You can see there the silhouette of something standing there. Now this is the more lightened version where you can really start to make out something just there. Now here's when I started to get really creeped out. I mean, this is a legit woman standing there with a veil on her head, screaming in the middle of the night. And here's another close-up. I mean, you can clearly make out a face beneath the veil. What do you guys think?
This photo is of the Cincinnati crawler. It was taken by a family who caught him in their home in 1974, but he escaped shortly afterwards. So in 1974, the Johnson family in Cincinnati noticed a couple weird things happening in their home. The 14-year-old daughter, Claire, would complain about seeing glowing eyes outside of her window at night. And then one night, the youngest son, Timmy, was laying in bed in the dark when he felt the family dog jump up onto his bed. But when he went to go pet it, it was not the dog. It was the crawler, who police still believe was responsible for the disappearance of 4 other boys in the area. Some believe that he was an escaped convict, while others actually believe that he was the victim of human experiments happening in the area that may have been conducted by the family's dad. Claire snapped this photo of him before he escaped, but he was never found since.
This is why you should never answer a call from your own number. Tim was woken up by his phone constantly ringing, but he ignored it and went back to sleep. That day he went to work, pulled out his phone, and saw that he had a missed call from his own number. He thought this must be a coincidence. He went to hang out with his friend and another call came. This time he picked up and heard his own voice repeating whatever he'd say back to him until he was about to hang up. The voice said, "You're going downhill." He felt very uneasy but tried to let it go. The next morning at work, his number called again, but this time he felt terrified. So he made up an excuse and drove home as fast as he could. He knew deep inside some kind of a confrontation was coming. As soon as he got home, he saw his car pull into the driveway, and he saw himself get out of the car with a terrifying smile on his face. His doppelganger had stalked him and found him. Tim barricaded himself in his bedroom, but his doppelganger was banging on the door. He knew he was almost out of time. That's when he had one last idea. He pulled out his phone and called himself, and he heard his own voice reply, "How are you calling me from this number? Who are you?"
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life and why you still think about them?
Baby, let me tell you what happened. So my ex-husband and I used to live in Montana. We lived there for 7 years, and we had a dog named Magic. And my ex-husband was military, so he would go out and be away from the home for like 3 to 4 days. And so Magic and I would be at home alone, obviously. So around 2:58 one morning, midnight, or I'm like, just past midnight, it was the middle of the night. And I just remember Magic kind of like looking at the door and barking, going, like that, on guard, like barking. She's like every minute of 2.5 pounds. Like she's not an aggressive dog. So I was like, what is she doing? So I go back to sleep. The next day I have my homegirl Yanni come over, and she has the gift of sight. So she ends up coming over, and all of a sudden she's talking to me like this. She's like, "Yeah, so like, sis, why you?" She said, "Something just peeked down from the ceiling at you." I said, "Oh, okay." So that night I took some blessed oil, honey. My granddad is a bishop. I know him. I know the Lord all through and through. I took that blessed oil through that house and was praying. I put oil on all the doors. I blessed the 4 corners. I opened up the windows. I said, whatever you are, if you are not of God, you got to go. And I went through all that whole motion. So I went to sleep that night. At 3 o'clock on the dot, Magic was looking up at the ceiling. Like before, she was kind of looking at the door at an angle up. This time, she was looking directly up like this. And she was going, ruh, ruh, barking. I said, oh, man. And so that next morning, I opened the door just to kind of like, you know, it's the morning. You wake up, you get going with your day. I opened the door to check, like to look at the oil and stuff on the walls and on the door. And it was the oil that I had placed in the cross over my door was smeared, like a handprint had smeared it. And this was no like regular handprint. It was like, it had 3 fingers and it was like 5 times the size of my hand. So I was like, I knew immediately that I was up against something ungodly and not human. So, obviously I said, God, please just show me that you're with me. Montana is very isolating if you allow it to be. And that night, the enemy showed his face that night before, but that night, God showed me his. He showed me the angels that were protecting me and my family. And yeah, that's a story that I will never forget, ever.
I'm pretty sure I encountered an actual skinwalker. So this happened a few years ago when I visited my cousin in Pennsylvania for the weekend. Keep in mind, y'all, Pennsylvania is full of wooded areas. So this story happened at night, and it all started because she had to take out the trash. So because it was nighttime, I of course volunteered to help her because she lived in a townhouse. So if you know anything about that, you know that the dumpsters, they're not in front of your house. You have to like walk a little bit to then throw out the trash. So it was in its own designated area, and that of course being right near the woods. So anyways, this night in particular was very foggy, which made it very hard to see. And y'all, I remember when we were walking to the dumpster, it was quiet, but it was an uneasy quiet. Usually you would hear bugs, insects, but this time, nothing. So we're at the dumpster, and I remember getting this weird feeling, and I told my cousin, I was like, can you please hurry up? Because at this point, I want to go back to the house. I'm over being out here. And y'all, of course, after I said that, that's when we both see this small black cat appear out of nowhere. And one thing about my cousin is she loves cats, so I guess she probably thought this was her sign with the cat distribution system, so she decided to follow it. And y'all, that little thing went into the woods. So I obviously, 1, wasn't gonna leave her alone, and 2, wasn't gonna walk back alone. So I decided to follow her. So we had our flashlights on our phones following the cat, and I remember at one point, the cat ran between these 2 trees. And what's really crazy is that when we looked over to see if the cat was there, it wasn't. And y'all, where we were standing, there's absolutely no way we couldn't have not seen where the cat went. So the fact that we couldn't see where the cat went freaked us both out. On top of that, this cat led us so far into the woods that we ended up losing connection on our phone. So we couldn't call anybody. So we're standing in the middle of nowhere. It's foggy, it's night, and the only light that we have are our flashlights. At this point, I'm aggravated. So we proceeded to trace our steps in hopes of not going further into the woods. And y'all, when I tell y'all, this is when it got so crazy. So I remember we're walking, and I hear something call my name, but it was faint. And I asked my cousin, I was like, yo, did you just hear that? She goes, no, it's probably your mind playing tricks on you. Oh, okay. Okay. Then about 5 minutes later, we both now hear the voice of someone calling my name, which sounded like my cousin's mom. How in the world did her mom walk out into the woods? There's absolutely no way, right? So that's when my cousin yells, Mom? Big mistake, because we instantly start hearing the bushes around us start moving as if this thing is coming closer to us. So at this point, I'm freaking out, and I tell my cousin that we need to run because that is just not your mom. That's when we hear the voice say, come over here. That's when I decided that it's time to book it. And when I tell y'all, we ran like we had never ran before. I consider joining track after this. Now, y'all, as we're running, we start to hear stomping and loud crunches from the leaves that are on the ground as it's getting closer to us. I still remember that as we were running, I turned my head for 1 second, and y'all, whatever was chasing us wasn't human and wasn't a damn animal. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, but y'all, it was massive. And when I saw this thing, I started screaming like there was no tomorrow. So we finally make it back to the dumpster, and we turn around, and it just isn't there. Nothing. So what's crazy is that the next day we go out into the woods when it's sunny out to see if there were footprints or something, like a trace of something left behind, but there was nothing. But I swear to you, whatever it was just not human. It wasn't from this earth, and I still wonder to this day, what would have happened if we did not run?
I think it's time I tell you guys why I don't post paranormal content anymore, but in order to do that, we have to take it back to the beginning. If you guys have been keeping up with my old videos, you know that weird things have been happening in my house, outside my house, pretty much anywhere that I go. And I've been posting paranormal content for a while for your guys' entertainment, to keep you entertained, to give you something to just watch. But the more that I do it, the worse that things get. I have a bunch of unreleased... Hold on a second. Sorry, it's all in my head. Sorry. I have a bunch of unreleased footage that I've never put on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube before. And if you guys want to see it, and if we get enough interaction on this video, enough likes, I'll release it. But I think it's time to bring back paranormal content, to just give you guys something to watch and just to get to the bottom of all of this. But stay tuned for my videos tomorrow.
Get ready with me while I tell you something very scary I went through. Correction, that I went through. Okay, so this story took place in 2016. My parents, they clean offices, and me and my brother, we used to go help them at the time. So it's basically like they go at night when nobody's in the buildings to clean the offices. So I don't want to say exactly where this was, but this building was pretty big. It was a 2-story building, and we would usually separate. So it would be my mom and dad, and then me and my brother. So there was this one specific time where there were some construction workers, and they had to go at night too, so nobody's at the building. So me and my brother, we were in an office, and sometimes the bucket where we throw the trash in gets really full. So I would tell my brother, can you go throw the trash? So I could start taking more trash out because it didn't fit anymore. So I noticed my brother was taking a little longer than he should have. And I was like, okay, let me just leave. So I was like, let me just leave. I'm already done with this office. So let me see where he's at. So this is where it gets really freaking creepy. By the time I get to the hallway, my mom and dad and my brother are there. And my brother is telling them that he ran into a construction worker. My brother starts telling my dad how the construction worker stopped him and asked him if he's ever heard noises in the building or if he's ever seen anything. My brother then tells him, yeah, we do hear things sometimes, but we just like ignore it, or we just don't pay much attention to it. Although there were times we did hear things and we got scared. Like, well, the construction worker starts telling my brother that they're not coming at night anymore. They're getting their stuff and leaving because they saw a little boy. So they saw a little boy dressed in hospital clothes, like a hospital gown, running through the hallway, and a doctor or nurse type looking chasing after them. Yeah. And mind you, this building is not a hospital, not a clinic. It is a call center. So it was a call center upstairs. And downstairs, it was a DR Horton. The DR Horton office was where the construction workers were in. So my dad starts saying, like, there's no way. They just made that up. Start saying they're just trying to scare you, like, blah, blah, blah. So we just, like, go about the day. We didn't really think much of it. It did scare us, but we were like, what the fuck? So fast forward a couple months later. So we're back in the building, and my dad comes up to us, and he looks freaking scared. And we're like, what happened? And he said that he saw so my dad starts telling us that he was in the hallway and that he saw a doctor pushing a patient on like a hospital bed, and they were exiting the building, and that my dad yelled, hey, and that they turned and looked at him directly. The patient looked directly into my dad, and my dad was like looking at him, and that quickly they exited the building. And my dad said he ran out of the building, and when he went out there, there was nothing, like no cars. It was empty. It's just our car there in the building parking lot. So after that, we decided that we did not want to separate, and my dad was like, F that, we're not separating. We literally saw what the construction workers said that they saw, except it wasn't a kid. It was like an older guy. So, well, shortly after that happened, we didn't work there long after that. But now, so a couple months from today, we went to go visit that building, but it's completely abandoned. Like, it's just, there's nothing in it. So I'm just like, what? But yeah, let me know if you guys believe in ghosts, and let me know if you guys want more scary stories, because I have a lot.
I have a creepy story time. If this is the type of content that you're into, feel free to follow along. I post a scary story every single day. The person who submitted this wishes to remain anonymous, so for the sake of the story, let's call him Victor. Now, Victor is a medium, which means that he is able to help people who have recently lost a loved one in order to deliver a message, or if they're having any type of experiences in their home. Back in 2006, him, his wife, and daughter had recently moved to Texas. Around this time is when they came across a family that were having issues in their home. It started off very small, like pictures falling off the wall, dishes were being moved, and keys were going missing, but nothing too crazy, just mainly annoying. But as time went on, it started to get worse. Victor was called, so he decided to go over there and take a walk around. The minute Victor walked into this house, he felt it. Now, this family had 2 young children. One was about 4, the other one was 6. So Victor suggested that they lay baby powder on the ground to try to eliminate some of the noises and the things going missing, to see if it was maybe the kids messing around. The next day at about 9 a.m., Victor gets a call from the family. He ends up going to the house. When he walks in, they show him one of the rooms where they lay the baby powder, and very clearly in cursive, the name Casey has been written out. Now, Casey happened to be Victor's daughter's name, and there was no way that anyone in the house could have been the one to write it out, because there were no footsteps around the name, 1, and 2, no one in the house knew his daughter's name. So Victor asked the family, "You guys know anyone by the name of Casey?" The family all responds with, "No, we don't know anyone by that name." Victor then tells the family that he cannot help them and starts to quickly leave the house. The family, of course, asks, "Why can't you help us? And who's Casey?" Victor explains to them that Casey is his daughter's name. And the fact that his daughter's name was written in cursive on the ground to him is a warning. Victor believed that this was a D word that was trying to come after him because he was helping the family.
What the fuck is outside? What the fuck? Too scared to open my door.
Come here. Come here. Come here. What the fuck? Come here. Come here. What I told you. Come here. Fuck.
The reason I had to move out of my flat. I was home alone.
Gabe, it's your mother. You should come out.
Then what's your name then?
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life and why you still think about them?
Y'all may think I'm crazy for this one, but I swear to God, I remember this clear as day. And it was the time I kid you not, I swear I saw Bigfoot. Age 10, living in Florida, when my family was living in Bradenton, Florida. Let me just tell you the story because shit. So me and my family, when I was 10 years old, living in Florida and everything, my family lived in a small cul-de-sac, okay? Behind us was this large forest, large swamp area, and all that stuff. The only thing that separated us was like this ditch, this sewer ditch and everything, but beautiful forest. Me and my friends played in there all the time, okay? Then one day, my mama comes and tells me, "Hey, I talked to everyone else in the neighborhood. You and your little friends are not allowed to go into that forest anymore." You know me, I'm like, "But why?" She's like, "Don't talk back. Don't ask why. I told you not to go into the forest, so don't." My hard-headed little ass decided to go in there anyway to see what was going on and everything. So I go in there and I see that the little grove area that me and my friends played, the way was torn down. It was barricaded from the inside, which I thought was strange. The little grove area, the forest had multiple entrances to be able to get in there into the underbrush of it and everything. So I go around back in order to see if I could be able to go in the back way. And that's when the freaky shit started to happen. Once I get around back and everything, yeah, I kid you not, I saw this 7-8 foot tall, dark-haired from head to toe, covered in fur, animal thing, okay, walking upright, and it was walking like this, kind of hunched, but definitely walking upright. I was in such shock. I did not even know what to do. Alright? And then all of a sudden it stops in its tracks and just start going like as if it was smelling the air. Y'all, I did not move an inch. I moved nothing. I was so damn scared. I did not know what to do. I made myself feel as if I was non-existent in that moment. I was that scared. All of a sudden it stopped and it started to continue to walk. When it got further enough away, I ran back home and told my mama what was going on, running through the door going, Mama, I just saw this big thing and I think it was Bigfoot and everything like that. And she's over here like, I told you not to take your ass back into that forest. Get your ass upstairs. Still remember it to this day.
Okay, so I've got a story, but don't follow me for content like this because I will never talk about stuff like this again. But, okay, so I grew up in a really bad area in New York City. And one night, it was about 10:30, I was doing laundry and I was coming home. At the time, I had like my door knocker earrings on. I had like a gold chain. I was like really flashy. And I was walking home and I was on my cell phone. And all of a sudden, you know when you feel like someone right behind you? Like I just felt like someone was right behind me. So I turned around and I see these two big girls and they had a look on their face like, what's up? So, you know, I grew up in this neighborhood. I knew they were about to kick my ass. So I was like, oh my God, I was so scared. And the person I was on the phone with, she's like, what's going on? What's going on? And finally I was like I was so scared. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden I hear someone saying, hey, what's going on? So I turn around and I see this man, right? I'll tell you, this man was fine. Like he must have been like 6'6". He was brown, chocolate brown with the most beautiful blue eyes I had ever seen. Now, remember, I grew up in this neighborhood and I had never seen this man before. Believe me, I would have noticed if I saw this man before. But he came up to me as if he knew me and he was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. And all of a sudden I hear like the sound of like feet. So I turn away from him and I look and those girls are running. I mean, they are running fast away from me. And I was like, and the person I was on the phone with, they're like, my God, what's going on? What's going on? Are you okay? And I was like, oh my God, these girls, I think they were about to fight me. Oh my God, I got to thank this man. And I look, he's not there. So mind you, I'm like, what the hell? So I walk towards his building because it was right across the street, the building he came out of. He wasn't there. I run to the corner to see if he's there. He was gone. It was late too, so there was no one on the street. He was gone. Let me tell you, there is no possible way that man could have like jetted out there unless he was like freaking tracks or say Bolt number 2. There was no way. So there's a saying that your mom's prayers still protect you or your grandmother's prayers. I really believe that's what happened that day. My mom is super spiritual, always praying. My grandmother was always praying at the time when she was alive. Yeah, I think that maybe that was my guardian angel. You know, it was definitely not normal what happened that day. But that instance also led to me changing my life. At the time, I was really angry. I was really like, you know, trying to prove myself. After that, I kind of realized there's way more to life than that.
Okay, so I come from a family of people who are spiritually inclined. We've always heard stories about, you know, our grandmother being possessed and all kinds of crazy stuff. I've seen my mom's hair like fully stand on end. And when I was a kid, my mom used to tell me stories about how in Afghanistan, where they lived, like in a rural kind of area in the mountains, that there was like this valley that people knew not to go to. And I was like, why? What's there? And she told me that there's these giants and they will kill you. So like the people, the villagers, they know better than to cross into that territory because that is their claimed territory. Me thinking like, okay, mom, whatever. So I meet this other girl from Afghanistan who tells me a story about her uncle experiencing one of these beings and watching it fully like step over a river when he saw it in the distance and thought it was someone he knew, and then saw how large it was once he started to get closer and ran. Then somebody sent me this article. The giant of Kandahar was a giant humanoid creature allegedly killed by a group of American soldiers on the mountainside in Afghanistan. Still classified by the US government. You can find stories about this on YouTube, but basically from what I saw, they said that it like shot and like not an arrow, I think it was like a spear through one of the soldiers. They killed it and then they shipped the remains to the United States, where they signed a non-disclosure agreement and never talked about it again. There is something there, let me tell you. And the United States knows about it.
2016, I was doing a security course based in Bristol, and at the time I was staying at my nan's house. It was just easier to commute. So I was staying there for about a week for the course. One morning, early in the week, I prepared to leave, or thought I did, and I got stuck in the porch on the way out. What I realised was that the porch needed a key from the inside to get out, and I couldn't go back into the house because I'd already shut the front door, so I was stuck. This is about 7 a.m, so my nan still hadn't woken up yet. She was also incredibly deaf by this point, so I was doing everything I could to try and get her attention. I was simultaneously banging on the door, ringing the doorbell, ringing the house phone, and shouting through the letterbox all at the same time, and nothing worked. Letterbox, I had a look, and I could see into the living room, and sat on one of the armchairs in the living room was my granddad. At this point, he'd already been dead a year and a half. So I wondered, did I just see that? But I was stuck in there for about 40 minutes, and that's enough time to tell you that, yeah. And being there, he didn't move, he didn't say anything. 40 minutes, a neighbour spotted me, and thankfully she had a key, so she came to let me out. Inside before I left, but for two reasons I didn't. One, I was already late for the course that morning, and two, I was a little bit freaked out. The day was normal, as was the following years after that. I've never seen him again since. I ever will again, and I don't know what it even means. If anyone's had anything similar or as an explanation, let me know.
Tell me about the scariest thing that has ever happened to you. I'll go first.
Easy. The year 2009, I got invited to a very random person's birthday dinner. I was not like very close to this group, but they invited me, and honestly, it was a great sushi spot that they were going to. I personally love sushi. I would not pass up an opportunity to eat sushi. Like, we could be celebrating the removal of your ingrown toenail, and I'm going. And ingrown toenails hurt a lot, so I get it. But whatever. Anyway, so the year 2009, at this birthday dinner, I take my best friend, and her and I are talking, and then somebody walks in wearing something I can only describe as fucking fugly. It was a very ugly outfit. But I'm a good person. I'm not going to tell the girl, you know? So I do what everybody does. I text my best friend saying, oh my God, look what so-and-so is wearing, with the skull emoji. And then the girl that just walked in looks at me and she goes, why'd you text me? I'm right here. Because,
When I was 11 years old, I went to Vancouver Island to do a figure skating camp with a couple other girls from school and their mom. We stayed in the mom's grandma's place in Victoria, just an old mobile home in the suburbs. And one night, as I was falling asleep, my mom had left the door open a crack, so there was some light coming in. I was on my side and I opened my eyes and I saw a girl with freckles and short red hair staring at me like menacingly. It was so creepy. I told my mom about it the next morning because my mom used to be able to see ghosts, so I knew she'd believe me. So the next morning, as I was about to walk out the door, we were about to leave for camp, I see a painting, a portrait of a young girl with long red hair and freckles. It's literally the same girl, except she had long hair in the painting. I don't know if she was like a relative of the grandmother or something, but it was like the clearest ghost I've ever seen, and I'll never forget that experience.
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life and why you still think about it?
When I was 10 years old, I had pneumonia. And if you know what pneumonia is, basically you have so much like phlegm in your body, in your lungs, that you can actually wake up choking to death. And one night I was on the top bunk in our bedroom. It was me and my sister. She was on the bottom bunk, I was on the top bunk, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't breathe. I'm like physically choking. All of a sudden, the second that I start noticing that I can't breathe, I see my sister walking up the ladder of the bunk bed, her eyes closed like this, complete monotone face, grabs me, scoops me up, takes me into the bathroom where my mom and my dad run out of their bedroom and they like start like trying to like save me. She leaves when my parents come, and she goes back to bed. The next morning, she says she doesn't remember anything of what happened. She's like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. So I found that really strange. The fact that she was like, her eyes were completely closed. She was 15 while I was 10 years old, but we were pretty much the same height. Her being able to carry me so freaking easily with her eyes closed doesn't make any sense. It's physically not possible. It just doesn't make sense at all. And for her to have come the second that I woke up going, was so strange. Like, she was just there. And I am like convinced that she was possessed by an angel that night, and that angel saved my life. It is the craziest thing. I will never forget that to this day. Like, the fact that she was, I'm telling you, when I think about her face, like climbing up the ladder like this, it just trips me out every effing time. It's crazy.
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life and why you still think about that moment?
Okay, so basically what happened is I was like a kid and I was eating breakfast in the living room of like my childhood home. And I remember sort of like out of the shadows where the kitchen was, I watched a bright red man walk across my kitchen. I mean, like, he was bright red. Like, he wasn't affected by light or like shadows. He almost appeared to be two-dimensional, but he like walked through the thing and he turned to me, and I remember his like bright yellow eyes, like the absolute primary color of it all. And he looked at me and then he looked away and he continued walking towards where the front door was. And I remember feeling so compelled to get up and follow him. And so I did. And I remember getting up and following behind and seeing the back of him, still in two dimensions, but somehow not. And he walked to the front door, as did I, and then he just vanished. That was it. I have thought about this entity for the rest of my life. I only ever saw him one more time again. We once, me, my sister, and my cousin were going upstairs, and as we approached the stairs, we watched him at the top of the stairs, like taking the last step and then walking around the corner and behind the banister and go into my mother's room. And I remember again the three-dimensionality of this two-dimensional creature who was not affected by the darkness of the room and still was this bright red flat color. To this day, I have no idea what it was. But it never scared me. It never felt evil. But twice did I see it. We called him the Red Man pretty much forever. So if you have ever experienced something like this or have any ideas on what I might have seen, I would love to know in the comments, because I've just never gotten answers.
Okay, so not my usual content, but I did see this and I wanted to stitch it with one of my stories. So no matter where you live, there's usually a house in your community that most people believe to be haunted, and this is the one from my hometown. This is the Mather Walls house in Kenora, Ontario, built in 1889, I believe. So anyways, every Halloween season, the local high schools do the Mather Walls house up like a haunted house. And there's lots of like people in costumes and strobe lights and all sorts of things, right? It's pretty spooky. So there was this documentary series called Creepy Canada that aired in the early 2000s on, it was either the Travel Channel or the Outdoor Living Network. I can't quite remember. But anyways, they had done a segment on the Mather Walls house. So anyways, it was like 2004, maybe 2005-ish, and my husband and I had just returned from doing the haunted house tour at the Mather Walls house. We walked up the stairs to our apartment where we had left the TV on, and we sat down on the couch, and what was playing? That episode of Creepy Canada, and they had just started playing the Mather Walls segment of that episode. So we were just watching all of this spooky shit and learning all of these spooky stories about the spooky ass house that we just came from. But my story doesn't totally end there. It was maybe 5 years later, and my husband at the time and I were considering buying his grandparents' house, which happened to be next door to the Mather Walls house. And we didn't discuss this with anyone first. We were just talking amongst each other. And then my mom phoned me and she was like, Tara, I had the weirdest dream last night that I was yelling at you over the phone not to buy that house. And she was just like, I don't know what that means. And I was just like so taken aback by it because we had not even said that we were thinking about buying this house, that we were thinking about buying a house in general. We were renting a cute little house out in the country at the time, in fact. So anyways, to this day, anytime I'm anywhere near the Mather Walls house, I always think to myself, what the fuck? And why did my mom have this premonition that I should not buy the house next door to it? What would have happened?
Okay, cousins, y'all ready for this one? Come on, let's go. All right, so I was in the 9th grade going to summer school. Judge him on who don't do it. Okay, we all have our struggles. That was mine. Shut your face. Okay. So anyway, I don't know why I didn't have a bus ticket. But anyway, my mama had gave me enough money to get back home. Okay, she gave me my bus fare. She was like, this is for you to get home. Cause she dropped me off before she went to work. So I was like, all right, cool. However, I was hungry. Okay, my stomach was eating at the back. Okay, so I made the executive decision to use my bus fare to get something to eat. Cause again, I'm hungry. Okay, it was just, I needed to do it. Okay, I was hungry. All right. And I was like, I'll just call my mama or whatever and tell her just to come pick me up, right? Well, child, that wasn't a good idea. Okay. So I had enough change. And of course, that was when pay phones was a thing. Okay. Everybody didn't have a cell phone. Okay, cousins? All right. So I called my mama at work, and mind you, she don't like to be called while she at work. Okay. Cause she's like, I'm booked and busy. Don't call me unless it's an emergency. And this to me was an emergency. So I called my mom. I was like, I don't have no money. I was hungry. Girl, my mom was like, whatever, April. Click. Over with. So I'm like, oh, Lord, what I'm going to do? I'm panicking. I'm like, Lord, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I thought about it. So I was like, all right. But I don't know if my auntie home. So I was like, okay, bump it. I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to just walk to my auntie house. But at the same time, I'm lazy and fat lazy. And I just did not want to go walking. But I had no choice because I couldn't stay at the school because they closed at a certain time. So I couldn't stay at the school and wait there. So what am I going to do? So I just was like, all right, cool. I'm just have to, walk to my auntie house. That's about a 20, for me, child, probably would have been 30, 45-minute walk. Okay. But I just knew I had to walk it because that's what I have to do. So as I'm walking on Claiborne. I'm just like, I'm just going to walk. I'm at the corner about to cross the street to go under the bridge so I could go to my auntie house because my auntie lived off of Broad and St. Bernard by the infamous Blue Store by Pampers. If you know, you know. Okay. So as I'm walking, of course, I'm stressed. I'm probably on my face. I looked like I was in distress because I was stressing out like, Lord, please let my auntie be home. I don't have no money. So I called my mama. My mama gonna kill me. I'm just going through my own panic attack. Okay. So as I'm about to cross the street, this old school car, I'ma just say it was a Pinto. Okay. It rose up. It was burgundy. I mean, old school. Okay. Real metal car. Okay. And I see the smoke coming out, you know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, he stopped right in front of me and he leaned over. He said, Red, you need a ride? Never seen this man a day in my life. Okay. He was reddish brown, had pretty hair. It was in 2 pigtails. He had on his Native American necklaces, and rings and things, and he had a blunt in his hand. So to me, he looked like a Mardi Gras Indian. Okay. So if you know, you know. Okay. So he was like, Red, you need a ride? And I was like, yeah. Again, I don't know this man, y'all. Your cousin don't know this man. He said, I'm going to the east. Where you going? I'm going to the east too. Now, mind you, why I didn't say you could take me to my auntie house, but I was like, you can take me to the east. So he was like, come on, get in the car. I got you. Y'all know what I did, right? I got my stupid ass in the car. Don't you judge me, judge my hoe. I know. Okay. I know. Okay, so I close the door and I'm leaning and I'm hovering and I'm hugging that door because I'm like, I am taking a chance with this man. However, I didn't feel like he was going to do something to me, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. So we head to the east. Now, mind you, this old school car, I mean, with the shag at the top, okay, with the balls at the end, like that old school. He had a bunch of shit on the dash, like he had the Native American mat, like he had all that. He had the feathers, I mean, all that, okay. Incense in the car sticking out on the top of the ceiling. Baby, and he just smoking his blunt, incense going. It was okay. It was an experience. Okay. So going to the east, you gotta go over the high rise. You gotta go to the high rise. If you on the interstate, you on the high rise, right? So, but he was, and mind you, his struts was not good on this car. Okay. So like we moving, but the car is literally like I'm on a wave. Like this is how I'm going. Like this car is just like, you just like, ugh. Okay, you see how you feel? Okay, that's how. So as we on the high rise, he's on the far end. He's on the end lane. Okay. I'm like, Lord, please don't let this man push me up out this car right here at the top of the high rise. Lord, I'm gonna die. I'm just panicking at this. And mind you, we having dialogue. He talking to me. You know what I'm saying? He cool as hell. He talking to me, you know, whatever. But at the same time, yo, I'm nervous as hell. Okay. So he was like, what exit you getting off of, Red? I said, Crowder. So we get off the exit, and he was like, left, right. I said, left. So in my mind, I had already said, we not gonna go straight to my house. I'm gonna tell him drop me off by the church, cause I was about to go ready to church. So he was like, yeah, I'm happy I was able, you know what I'm saying, to help you. He was like, but you need to understand, Red, everybody ain't here to help you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm just good people. You know, and I was like, yeah, I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, you know, and he just running it. He just being real cool. But again, I don't have the feeling that he gonna hurt me. I just was on call. I was just on alert. So I tell him, I was like, hey, my house right here. I'm pointing to somebody random ass house. I don't even know who the house was for, baby. I just was like, there go my house. You could let me off right here. So he said, all right, then. So I get out the car. He look at me. He said, Red. I was like, yeah. He's like, remember what I said? Everybody ain't gonna be like me. Everybody ain't gonna help you. You be safe, okay? Make better decisions. And I looked at him. I said, all right, I will. Thank you. So I turn around and I'm walking away, right? But I'm hauling ass walk. But as I'm walking away, I'm turning to see where he at. The first time I turned, I didn't see him. So I turned around again the second time. He was gone, y'all. Gone. Mind you, where he dropped me off at, he either had to go left, right, or straight, but I would have seen it because on Crowder and Morrison, there's no hiding place, okay? And he wasn't going $1.05 for him to go like that. This dude was gone. He vanished. I never seen that car ever again, never seen that dude ever again. He wasn't no old dude. He had to be at that time in his 20s. If it was his 30s, okay? And one of my homeboys from the neighborhood, he seen me, he was like, man, where you coming from? You know, I was like, man, this dude helped, you know what I'm saying, brought me home, whatever. He like, what? And I was like, yeah, he was just in this burgundy. He was like, man, Abraham ain't no burgundy car. We looking, gone. So I'm sitting here like, was that like a guardian angel? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, was something gonna happen to me on my way to my auntie house? Did the Lord just say, let me just help this crazy fool out? But I don't think the Lord would have been like, hey, just go ahead and jump in the car. But at the same time, like, it just blew my mind. And when I say I never seen him, like, he literally vanished. And a Pinto can't vanish. Okay, come on now, cousin. So I don't know. He had to be a guardian angel. Like somebody from up above was like, let me get her to safety. And I got home safe and all. And I just made up something to tell my mama because I knew she was going to lose her mind knowing that I got in the car with a perfect stranger. Like, come on. But that still blows my mind still to this day because I know that I could have been unalived easily, you know. But at the same time, I felt like that man was sent to me to protect me, to just get me to where I needed to be. Cause I'm saying like, damn, what if something would have happened to me going to my auntie house? You know what I'm saying? But I would never know. But what I do know is, baby, don't ever jump in a car with a stranger, okay? Don't do that. All right. But let me tell y'all something. I have some more crazy ass stories and creepy ass stories. If y'all want to hear more, you just let your cousin know, okay? Bye, y'all.
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life?
So my creepiest moment was about 10 years ago. I was working in a hospital. I've got a few, but this one always sticks. And I was working in an x-ray department and it was booked appointments. So we had a really small waiting area and I would go out and I would say to the patient, it's going to be about 5-10 minutes. On this occasion, I went out and there was an elderly lady and an elderly gentleman sitting in the waiting area on their own. And I said, just to let you know, we'll be about 5-10 minutes. And they both looked up and kind of waved, and I went back into the room and I came out 5-10 minutes later and they called the patient in, which was the lady, and she was on her own. So she stood up and I said, oh, would you like to wait for your husband? And she said, sorry? And I said, would you like to wait for your husband? She said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I said, the man that was with you. She said, I've been sitting on my own the whole time. I was like, no, you had somebody with you, an old man, you know. And she was just like, no, I've been on my own the whole time. So she looks a bit frightened. So I just called her into the room. We did the x-ray. And after the x-ray, she said, just out of curiosity, what did this person that you saw look like? And I said, well, he was an elderly man. He had a hat on, like a flat cap, and he was holding a stick. And she said, that does sound like my husband, but he died years ago. And that was it, kind of goosebumps, and didn't really want to pry or say too much, but I 100% saw two people. I wish there was CCTV. There wasn't, but I know with my two eyes, I saw two people sitting there together, the lady and the man. But yes, her husband had died. So yeah, I will never forget that. And it was as clear as day. He just looked like a person to me, but obviously I was focused on her because she was my patient. But yes, very creepy. Who knows?
Okay, so about 3 years ago, my husband and I decided to take a trip to Cambridge, and we went by train. We have a train station literally right by our house, and we got on that train, and there was a guy opposite us, and I specifically remember him because my husband and I had laughed about something, and he stared at me, and I remember thinking, oh, maybe he thinks we're laughing about him, which we absolutely weren't. Anyway, we transferred trains, a couple of times, and then eventually got to Cambridge. Nothing wrong with the journey. We waited outside the train station for about 10-15 minutes because we were on our phones looking for somewhere to go eat. And we found somewhere that was like a 10-minute walk away. So we start walking there. And this is Cambridge, so there are people everywhere. It's not unusual for someone to be behind you, right? But I was just aware that there was somebody following quite close behind me that had opportunity to go round me. I was wheeling a suitcase and he hadn't taken it. So I looked and I instantly recognised it as being this guy on the first train that we were on right by our house hours ago. Now, okay, coincidence. Don't think I'm being, maybe I was being a bit paranoid, but I'm just a bit uncomfortable with it. So I made an excuse to stop and allow him to go past, which he did. And then I watched him go down a side road. And then when we went past the side road, he was stood with his back towards us, leaning against a wall, but recognised it still being him. And then as soon as we passed the side road, I looked over my shoulder and saw him come out the side road and continue to follow me. So I signalled to my husband that I think this guy's following us. And we just went into the nearest pub bar that we could find. I said to my husband, I want to sit in the window because I want to just see whether he comes in and follows us. He didn't come in and follow us, but he stood outside for like 20 minutes just staring at us. Just staring. And eventually he left and we never saw him again. But we didn't want to go out and confront him because, you don't know if these people have issues or what. But what freaked me out the most was the fact that he followed us from literally our house on multiple trains just to stand outside a bar and stare at us for 20 minutes. And it's just one of those things that to this day really, really, really makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up because I don't know what he was intending. And I just hope it was nothing bad.
Man, listen. Tell me what's wrong. No, it's just...
What's wrong? I don't want to get hot. You know what? I never seen that. Let's go. I don't want to. She's like showing concern like a I don't know how to say, but she's taking up to her room. I'm sorry. Yes, she's not crazy. Everybody is so close up.